Today's topic is divots that go left of target. When a new student comes to me and their divots are going left, they'll say, "Pro, I got to be coming over the top." And I'll say, well, maybe so, but there's a lot of other ways that that club can come from the outside in. And you always hear that the club needs to come at the ball from the inside, and that's very important because when the club does come from the inside, we're going to get more of the meat of the club, but really more of the mass of the club behind the ball, which results in a lot more solid hit. When that club comes at the ball from the outside, we're kind of hitting the ball kind of a glancing blow, so not a whole lot of power is applied to it. Nonetheless, you're going to create a lot of spin. There's three basic ways that I see that actually are more common than an over-the-top move. The first one is this. If that shaft is pointing left to the target, there's a very good chance your downswing path will parallel that. And guess what? When that happens, the club is going to cut across the ball and divots are going left. There's two ways this can happen. One, instead of making a good turn with their shoulders and upper body on the backswing, people have a tendency to pick the club up with their hands and arms. When they do that, most of the time that shaft is going to be pointing to the left. A second way is when the people see the pros on TV getting that early wrist cock and they try to replicate that, there's a lot of problems that can happen. So when the pros get that early wrist cock, we see the shaft going up like this. And a lot of times when amateurs try to repeat that, they'll tend to bring the club inside. So we're really looking at two different wrist actions, cocking the wrist this way versus bringing it inside. So if they start with their hands, a lot of times they'll go from here and then lift the club up, and guess what? Shaft pointing left to target. There's easy ways to fix each one of these. The first one, when people pick the club up, it's very easy. You need to make sure you start your swing with your shoulders and make a good turn on that backswing. If we make a good turn on the backswing, we've got a much better chance for the shaft to be pointing at the target. And most of the time when it does point to the target, we've got a good chance to approach the ball from the inside. The second one is, instead of starting our swings, obviously we need to start with our shoulders. But the problem with this is you've got to make sure your hands stay very quiet. And what I'll do is I'll put a tee on the ground at least a foot behind the ball. I want to make sure my students start the swing with their shoulders and get that club to initially go straight back for at least a foot, if not longer. So if they can make that turn and keep their hands very still and make that turn back to the top, we've got a good chance at shaft pointing at the target. So what I'll do is when they practice, I'll have them lay a club on the ground between the ball and their feet, make sure the shaft is pointing at the target. Their checkpoint is going to be take the club about hip high and make sure that this shaft is parallel to this one. If they start with their hands, obviously the club is going to be inside of it. So again, quiet hands, start with your shoulders, and keep turning all the way up the top. The second way a divot can come from the outside is, as we're turning on our downswing, sometimes people will tend to slow their body as they approach the ball. And what happens, then that right hand will take over and do that little flip as we see. But when that club is flipping this way, it will also tend to come from the outside like so. So it's very important to keep that hand quiet. And I'm going to show you one way we can practice that. What you want to do is you can take like this impact bag, put it on your chest, and grip the club. Yes, it's very awkward. But what it does a great job of locking your arms into your body. So the only thing you can do is to turn. So a good way to help get rid of that right hand taking over and keep our body turning is to do this. Make a little turn about hip high, and from this point, just keep your body turning all the way through and past impact. The idea here is to keep your body moving well past impact with the ball. We don't want your body slowing down, and therefore a right hand will take over. So I'm not telling you to turn faster, I'm just telling you to keep turning. Now some people may not want to do this because if you take a bright yellow bag on the range, everybody will be staring at you. So you can practice this at home. You don't even need a ball. You can take practice swings like this, short back swing, and keep turning. If you wish to practice this on the range where nobody will be looking at you, take a good-sized golf towel. You've probably seen this drill before. Put one end under your arm, like so. What this towel does, it kind of locks your arms in your side. You're going to do the same kind of drill, a very short backswing, a very short turn especially, and then rotate your body all the way through. Ideally, you just want to practice with a short iron to do this. You're not going to hit it very far, but you got to make sure you feel that your body keeps moving all the way through impact. The third way the divot can go left is a lot more difficult to work on, and it looks like this. When we get to the top of the swing, sometimes the right hand will get a little too active, and what it does, it kind of pushes the shaft too vertical. And if that shaft is too vertical, if I swing my hands down a nice path, guess what? The club comes from the outside. The problem is that a right hand will kind of take over that backswing and push that shaft vertical like this. If you've ever taken a video lesson, your pro has probably looked at this position. As we start down, we want to try to get that shaft pointing at the ball. Sometimes I'll draw a little line this way. But when a right hand gets too active and pushes the shaft vertical, guess what? The shaft will be pointing inside the ball. Now the best way to practice this is we have to do it by feel. Obviously we can't see what's going on back there, so that's why it makes this very difficult to work on. What I'll do is I will stand where you are. I'll lay my grip on the shaft, and I'll have my student just take some slow downswings. And a lot of times I will feel a lot of pressure for them pushing that shaft this way. I've got to make sure this shaft stays down there, and that way the shaft will stay nice and flat. It's just a matter of doing a lot of repetitions of slow downswings. If you're helping a friend with this, or if you're a teaching pro working on this, make sure your student or your friend is swinging down very slowly. Otherwise, they swing down too fast, they may bonk you on the head. But the only way to really work on this is try to develop some feel of keeping that right hand still. Now compare that to keeping the right hand still, kind of like being a server at a restaurant. You get that big tray of dishes. If your right hand moves this way, guess what? Everything falls on the floor. So it's just a matter of feel, trying to keep that right hand very still. That way the shaft will flatten out and come at the ball from the inside. And no matter what I'm working on an outside-in path, I will almost always put a head cover next to the ball. We'll kind of put it even with the ball, and about a half-inch gap between the toe of the club and the head cover. I'll have my students practice this because it's a good way to make sure the club comes at the ball from the inside. It also gives you great feedback because if you come from the outside, you're going to hit the head cover. And that's it.